a second. Quiet you. Spin of the old spinner rack here. Welcome once again to a secret, undisclosed location hidden somewhere in the bowels of historic downtown St. John's, Newfoundland. Comes to you live on tape in the Library of Graphic Literature with your host, me, Niles Wrightson. Anyway, not a huge haul of books this week. A bit of tea there. Starting me off. But some cool stuff, and actually going to have a little bit of a feature. A viewer to my channel, Scream Chandler, as the name goes, asked me to talk a little bit about these Batman books, the Tales of and Legends of the Dark Knight series, so I'm going to talk about that. But first of all, let's get down and dirty with some new stuff. Anyway, let's see what we have here. City of Others, from Steve Niles, Bernie Wrightson, and Jose Villarrubia. So, of course, anything that has Bernie's name on it, the late great Bernie Wrightson, I will automatically buy just on that alone. Truly one of my, I'd say he's definitely in my top 10 influential artists for myself. Growing up, I was very influenced by his Swamp Thing work. I mean, I'd never seen stuff like that growing up, and it was absolutely amazing. So gothic. His shadow work alone was simply stunning. So here we go. I'm assuming Bernie starts it off, because it looks like his starting off, and then goes to our pal there. Love Wrightson. Anything with his name on it, you can tell a Bernie Wrightson comic a mile away too. This looks like the Villarrubia stuff, which is okay, but it's not Bernie. But yeah, looks like it's it'll be an interesting read anyway. So, one down there. And what do we have next here? Ooh, Batman by Grant Morrison. Of course, usually anything by Grant Morrison I'll buy, and with Batman attached to it, that just seals the deal. You might say. Come on, let's get this plastic off. Let's get you out and naked. Okay, this is from Batman and Robin numbers 1 to 16, Batman 700-702, and Batman The Return of Bruce Wayne number 1 to 6. From groundbreaking artists Frank Quitely, Fraser Irving, Phil Tan, Andy Clark, Tony S. Daniel, Cameron Smith, and many more. So yeah, I've been wanting to read this because I actually like his work with Batman and Robin. I really like actually Damian for Robin for years. I could never really, when I was growing up, I couldn't stand Robin because it was like, it reminded me of I'd seen this as a kid with other people, not with myself, but with other people who when we go out together as a little gang of us roaming the neighborhood, one amongst us was forced to take the younger brother with them, much to their chagrin. And that's what I think of Robin. He's like the younger brother that your parents forced you to take with you. So I never really did cotton to him. I think the first one I actually really liked to any extent, believe it or not, was Carrie Kelly. And then, of course, when Damian came along, now I liked him. I liked his attitude. And he seems a lot more in line with someone who would be chasing a psychotic man in a Batcape around the city of Gotham. And so here we go. Quitely's work is quite good. There's a good mixture of different styles and different artists in this too, which is kind of cool. Check that out. Ooh, nice. But yeah, he's a Robin with a difference, that's for sure. But yeah, it's like I say, I'm a big Grant Morrison fan anyway, so just about anything especially in mainstream comics that he does, I'll give a shot at. And of course, some cool background stuff here, a few extras. Always love a good extras section, you know. I think it's just the crown on the top of the pudding for a book to have something cool like that. Ooh, and now the official sequel to Django Unchained. I think this is, I wonder if this is the first comic that, I think this is the first comic that I can think of that Quentin Tarantino wrote. To my mind, I can't think of anything else. But, you know, him and Matt Wagner. Art by Estevez Poles. Colors by Brendan Wagner. And letters by Simon Boland. But, yeah, when I seen it was Tarantino, I figured, I gotta give it a try anyway, alright? This is from Dynamite and Vertigo, because the Django and Zorro being from different licensed entities. But for any of you people who are into westerns, it looks pretty good. And I think I'm a big fan of Tarantino's films. I actually met him one time in Jim Henley's universe. Many years ago, he was there doing a signing for the Grindhouse set of movies. And got to meet some of the other people, but it was actually really nice. Came across as a person who was actually really enjoying what he was doing. So if you're out there, Quentin, it was nice meeting you. And I can remember when I thanked him, he shook my hand. Thank you for coming out today, and shook my whole body with it. It was something else. But I always enjoy that, to see someone who's working at something they love and they're still in love with doing it. And he seemed that way to me. Now time for a little tea break. Oh, okay, that's enough of a tea break. Now, what I was going to have a look at next is these series of books with all Batman stories, and they have two titles, Tales of the Batman or Legends of the Dark Knight, but they're like essentially the same collection. The although Tales, I think the Tales, now that I look at it, no, I was going to say I thought the Tales were for the, but there's no rhyme or reason to it anyway. But I like them because, well, number one, I'm a big Batman fan, of course, but they gave me the opportunity to collect some stories that I hadn't found in hardcover collections otherwise. So they're and some of them, you know, quite good, and you'll see why in a second. But they're all pretty cool. First off the bat here is Tales of the Batman, Carmmine Infantino, with the classic Infantino Batman and Robin drawing there. I always liked Infantino's approach, very dramatic. Now, of course, I was a huge fan of his Flash stuff and that, and the like, and his Adam Strange. But his Batman, I mean, he really did, because I mean, the Batman was kind of flagging there in the '60s, and he really did, with the whole new look thing and all that. He really did breathe a whole new life into Batman at the time. It's funny to say that Batman was to even hear myself saying the words that the Batman was in trouble. Oh, and an elongated man in there. But yeah, loved his art. This is basically when they paid Bob Kane to just go away and let them handle Batman from then on. Because basically Batman had gotten so stale. Oh, and here we are, of course, with and I can remember I actually had the introduction to comics of Batgirl, who I always actually kind of thought was cool. And this, of course, this is where you get into some cool art by Gil Kane too. I thought he'd done some, maybe I'm thinking about a later one. No, okay, that is. But yeah, love. And like I say, this is Infantino when he's at his greatest, I think. I mean, I'd seen stuff that he did in later years and all that, but never was a really big fan of any of his stuff really beyond this period of time, right? Next, of course, is possibly one of my all-time favorites when it comes to Batman artists. I mean, we all like Neil Adams, and I kind of all the Neil Adams Batman back there, but to me, Jim Aparo was my man. He one of the vastly underrated artists, and for me too. And this book actually contains, for the most part, all my favorite Aparo stuff. Some of the other stuff that I like too is in Volume 2, but his later work on Batman into the 80s and all that wasn't as big a fan. There was just something about his 70s work to me that really spoke to me. But absolutely fabulous Batman. Very dramatic looking. But he had especially his the Brave and the Bold stuff I loved. And this is some of the early stuff there. I liked his Joker too. Oh, this is one of the 100 pages. I can remember this. I love the 100 pages too because it introduced us to all these other characters too. Viking Prince, well, Green Arrow, but I mean, yeah, other people besides them, besides the people we knew. Was that's the one thing I loved about the 100 pages was the opportunity to explore and find other new stuff like Challengers, Solomon Grundy, Dr. Fate, all kinds of cool extras thrown in there. But yeah, and this Man Bat, I loved his Man Bat. He actually did a really cool one. But yeah, definitely some of my favorite when it comes to Batman artists. Next is another one of my favorites too, Marshall Rogers. Rogers, of course, is best known for the Joker Fish, his big contribution to the him and Englehart's contribution to the Batman mythos, including Silver St. Cloud but yeah, he it was weird. Marshall had a style that in some ways doesn't look like it would be a cool Batman style, but I mean, I loved him when from earlier stuff I'd seen him do with the in the Master of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu and some other stuff. And when he moved on to Batman, I figured, geez, he sounds actually like perfect guy for it. And actually, as it turned out, he was. So this collects all his early classic run, which is fabulous. And then he did and this was a cool text piece I always liked. Then he came back years later to do this series here. I think that was it. Yeah, it was years later. Come on, just won't cooperate here. Was it the Dark Detective or Batman Dark Detective? That's right. Hey, I got it right. It was a series that he came back and he did years later. I think it was also with Englehart too. I better double check my. Yeah, it was with Englehart. Loved Englehart as a writer. One of the giants of 70s comics. Now this one I like, Archie, the Archie Goodwin one, stories, and what I like the most about this is the fact that, I mean, this does contain some of the cool stories and some great art from like Howard Chaykin and actually the award-winning Death Flies the Haunted Sky won a from Detective 442, one of my favorite Alex Toth stories of the Batman. And then is Manhunter, and this is the classic series that he did with Walt Simonson. And for a series that was only I think 8 pages per issue and all that, I mean, he was new at the time, Walt, and this was, I mean, I can remember this just astounded people. His storytelling, I mean, was just phenomenal. Oh, and look at this. This, even though it's supposed to be a church in Istanbul, is actually St. Bert's in New York, which I discovered years later. But yeah, some great scenes there. But an absolutely amazing story. If any of you are not familiar with the Manhunter series, see if you can find it. And this is actually the Gotterdammerung. This was actually the last story in the series. This was a full-page story with Batman, and then there's a few other various ones tossed in here for good effect. But yeah, I bought this one mainly for the Manhunter stories. Len Wein. This one I bought for the for the series, the Batman is framed for murder by Talia, the Bat Murderer storyline. Here we go. I love these 100-pagers, you know, and continued for a while, and then Ernie Chua took over and finished off the series. This too has has a variety of artists on it, so it's interesting when you get the writer, the collections of the best of certain writers, because you get a nice variety of the artists. I think I'm gonna skip over here to the last one, or actually, why not? Don Newton, not too bad. One of the more underrated artists from the 70s, but there was something about his stuff I liked too. There was almost like a strange kind of Bernie Wrightson thrown in with him. This Tales of the Batman, J.H. Williams. I mean, who doesn't like J.H. Williams? One of my favorite of the new art of, the new crop of artists the past 20 years or so. But I loved his work on Promethea, and of course on Sandman. But yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. So yeah, that one's a good one too. And last but not least, Gene Colan. Gene Colan, of course, always been one of my favorites from Marvel Comics. This was when he switched over to DC. He did Night Force and Gem, and he took on Batman. And out of all of them too, when I seen he was taking on Batman out of all the characters in the DC universe, I figured this had to be one that he was sort of most suited for, considering his time doing Tomb of Dracula and that and Daredevil too. Daredevil in some ways is a creative cousin of Batman, I think. So it was, and like I say, I'm a huge Gene Colan fan anyway, so I went for it, and I got both volumes, and they're both worth getting. So check those out. So anyway, yeah, those Batman Legends of the Dark Knight and Tales of Batman books are actually, I think they're worth picking up. Anyway, that's about it there for this week. Now, next week's show will probably be delayed a bit, because next week is my Pure Comics Festival of Graphic Literature here in St. John's, Newfoundland. We start out next Thursday with we're handing out some prizes and going to sign a few comics. Then that Friday we'll have a lecture from Andrew Lohman from Memorial University. And then for that Saturday and Sunday we'll be teaching people how to draw comics and make comics with a series of workshops. We'll have a vendors area with people selling stuff, a little artist alley. We call it the salon. So people can come in and actually watch comic book artists as they work. The workshops are only $25, and to get into the rest, it's only $2. How's that? Is that not a bargain? Quite possibly the cheapest comic arts festival in the world, I think. But without doubt, the most easterly comic arts festival in North America. How's that? Anyway, I guess that's it for this week. So like I say, I will be delayed next week, but I will actually post some videos of the goings on there and stuff like that. And I'll definitely be posting pictures to the Facebook page. So check that out too. That being said, I loves all of you out there. And everyone have a great weekend and read them comics. Read large. See you then. Oh my God, here I go. Woo!